And this is something I love to talk about because it's something that almost gets under my skin, where people make these comments and I think to myself, they obviously have not used this system before. So it's these sort of misconceptions about GuttaCore, and they include some of the following. Some people would say, well, you know, GuttaCore can't be retreated easily. I hear it all the time, okay? I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Or some people say, oh, GuttaCore can't obturate curved canals. It only works really well on straight canals. All right, we'll talk about that. And then post-space preparations. Oh, it's such a nightmare making a post-space with GuttaCore. It's quite an issue. Well, we'll talk about that. And then the other thing is GuttaCore is more technically difficult than other systems, and GuttaCore may require more extensive of a setup. So with that in mind, let's talk about the immediate retreatment if the canal, let's say, is filled short. So let's talk about these misconceptions. So for me, the reason why I love talking misconceptions is because if anyone makes any one of those comments, I strongly urge you to ask them, have you ever actually used it? Please, because you'd be amazed how often people comment on stuff and they've never used it thinking, oh, I don't even bother using it. I just know it's not good. Well, if they haven't used it, there's no point even talking to them about it. Again, it's a real pet peeve of mine when it comes to these misconception comments about it. So first is immediate retreatments. Imagine you fill a canal short, and I'm going to show you this little video over here of me putting in this GuttaCore, and for whatever reason, I'm not going to the length that I need to go. Whether I spent too much time from the oven, I let it cool off, or maybe here's my clinical view of the same case. Either I spent too much time and it cooled off, maybe I was too fast, maybe I didn't use the corresponding size of the GuttaCore to the instrumentation, I was way off. Whatever the reason, imagine as you see in this radiograph, I'm filled way short of the apex. So the error is pointing to just the sealer that's there. It's not the Guttapercha. So what do you do in this case? Because some people have these issues. Go, oh, sometimes you may feel short. It's a real problem. Well, it's not. All you have to do is you grab a Hedstrom file. In this case, it's a small Hedstrom file. Turn it clockwise so it engages part of the Guttapercha. You go, let's say, halfway up the root. Remember, the GuttaCore hasn't fully set. The sealer hasn't fully set. Grab this thing, pull it out, and I kid you not, this is all it takes. And look at that Guttapercha. It's come out all clean, and that's it. It's like an immediate, complete retreat. And you don't have to go back in there with your master file. You don't have to do anything. Maybe just coat a little bit more sealer in there and get right back to it. And whatever mistake you did initially, whether you're too slow or whatever it is, just make sure you do it right. That's all. But it's not the end of the world whatsoever. Imagine with the downpack technique, if you start having voids because your plugger was an issue or you couldn't have the hot injection gun touch the Guttapercha at the apical part, there it's a nightmare. It really is, because that gooey, sticky Guttapercha, now you got to do a full-on retreat versus what I just showed you. It takes just seconds. So it's not the end of the world if you obturate, you take your x-ray, you realize, no, I'm not at the length I need to be, I'm too short, then go in there with the Hedstrom. You got time, you're good, there's no pressure there. So that's one thing. Another one is, oh, I can't retreat Guttapercha. Well, I can't retreat GuttaCore, excuse me. Well, it's Guttapercha. So ask yourself, how do you retreat Guttapercha cases? Well, just do it the same way, that's it. Okay, so use whatever instrument you want, whatever technique you want. It's Guttapercha, whatever solvent you want to use. It's not as if all of a sudden we're using metal in there or anything like that, okay? And then on top of that, post-space preparation. Well, it's Guttapercha. How do you make a post-space preparation in your regular Guttapercha obturation? Well, here I'm using a piezo reamer. Use whatever you have. Don't go out there and start buying a whole new kit for just post-space preparations. So whatever you have, use it. That's it. It is Guttapercha. There's no catch or gimmick, remember? So again, it's another one of those comments that's thrown out there that I just don't understand. Oh, you can't retreat it, or you can't do a post-space. Well, then that means you can't do the same things for Guttapercha obturations. And then it brings me to this. Well, you can't use it on curved canals. Actually, this is probably the best system for curved canals because it is warm from the tip of the GuttaCore all the way to the CEJ area. Whereas a traditional warm obturation downpack technique, imagine these pluggers you see over here. If that plugger doesn't go to the apical third, if it doesn't go to the about 4 or 5 millimeters of your working length because the canal is curved, you're going to get voids. If your injection tip, that's injection Guttapercha, can't go and touch that Guttapercha left at the apical 4 or 5 millimeters, you're going to get a void. So if anything, when you have curved canals, even if you're using Nitai nickel titanium pluggers, you're still going to be hard pressed for managing curved canals like I showed you in the previous slide. And so if anything, GuttaCore is a non-issue. That is the one system that'll fill all the way down to the apex. So Next one is, some people say, well, GuttaCore is more technically difficult than warm obturation. And, you know, this is again coming from people who I bet you have just never even used it, never even thought about or gave it a try. Remember these 15 steps I talked to you about? And trying the pluggers, pre-fitting the pluggers, pre-fitting the hot instrument. Well, remember the steps, how many fewer steps are involved in GuttaCore obturation, and how it took roughly 8 seconds to obturate it? That's it, period, versus a down pack. So you be the judge, okay? And then in terms of the setup, it's a no-brainer. I mean, look at the setup you need for a warm obturation. You need the oven, you need the injection gun, you need the hot instrument, you need various pluggers, possibly nickel titanium pluggers for curved canals, but again, they have their limitations too, versus cotton pliers, and that's it, your obturator, okay? Very, very simple. So it brings me to one of the other misconceptions, and that is a question I get sometimes, where people say, well, you know, sometimes I get this obturation where the GuttaCore goes out the apex. Shouldn't happen often. If it does, why does it happen? Am I using too much sealer or not? Well, apical extrusion is something that is rarely I've seen due to the GuttaCore. It actually has to do more with the instrumentation or the obturation. So it's not the GuttaCore or the sealer. It's not as if, oh, you used too much sealer or the GuttaCore is wrong. It has to do with more with other aspects of the endo treatment, and it's mainly to do with the instrumentation and length determination.